All right, so we've been collecting stomata data for lab recently, and we have two different conditions you'll recall. This is just an example of what some data could look like. I'm going to have you do a couple graphs for me of some class data I'm going to send you, and I'd like you to graph your data as well. And so you're going to have one that looks like this with these data in it, and then you click over here, and here's like a blank worksheet. Where you can go ahead and insert your data and do the same exact process. And so it looks like for field 1, we have 19 open and 2 closed. And so if you wanted, you could just plug in 21 because that's what 19 plus 2 is. I am, however, pretty error prone sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and have Excel do this work for us. And it's going to seem a little dumb at first because you could just say like, well, 21 plus 1 is 23. But I'm going to go ahead and have it do it for us because it's going to save us time in the long run. So I'm going to write a function here, and whenever you're writing a function in Excel or Sheets or whatever, you are going to start with an equal sign. So you always start with an equal sign. And the function that we want to write here is the sum function. So I'm going to go ahead and write equals the sum, and well, what do we want to add up? We want to add 19 and 21, or 19 and 2, and you could do that. You could say 19 and 2. But really, we want to add up the number of open stomata and the number of closed stomata. And so where do those data live? Like, where is the number 19 right now? Well, the way that Google Sheets or Excel understands this is that 19 lives in E5. If you go over A, B, C, D, E, and you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's where you're going to find it. That's where you find the number 19. Where are you going to find this 22? Well, you find it in E6. Where do you find this number 2 right here? Well, you find it in F5. It's just like playing Battleship. F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I want to sum up equals the sum of E5 and F5. So you type in equals the sum and then press that Shift 9 key. If you press and hold down Shift and then you press the 9, you can open up a parentheses, and we want to sum E5 and F5. There we go. You can either close the parentheses or you can just hit Enter. It's suggesting some things. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. We can do this one. We know the answer is supposed to be 23, but let's have Excel do it for us. Hopefully you'll see the benefit of this soon, but equals the sum of E6 through F6. There we go. And, if you're like me, you're probably bored of writing these equations already, writing these functions. So let me show you a shortcut that you can use. If you click away from it, because you don't want to be double-clicked or anything like that, but if you click away from you were just working, and then you single-click back where we were working, you're going to notice there's a blue square or a blue circle in the bottom right-hand corner. It's right there. There's our blue shape. And what you want to do is you want to take your mouse and hover it over that blue shape until your mouse turns into a black cross. See how it turns from a white mouse into a black cross? I'll show you this again. Single-click where you were working. There's that blue shape. You want your mouse to turn into a black cross. And then if you click and drag down, it's going to bring the formula down with it, and it's going to be correct. It's going to actually get the correct function here. So you may have figured out that that's why it's going to be very useful for more advanced formulas like percent open stomata, because I'm guessing you can't do 19 out of 21 in your head. So let's do the same thing for our condition 2. I'm going to go ahead and hit equals the sum of E14, comma F14. Close the parentheses. And it's going to suggest some values, and in this case it's correct. But again, if you want to bring those values down, if you want to drag that formula down, you single click on the cell where you were working, where you entered your equation for the first time. You take your mouse to the bottom right-hand corner. You don't want the hand. You want it to be in the bottom right-hand corner. You want the black cross, and you drag it down, and that brings all the formulas down. Another way that we could get this done is we could go up here and select all of these, and we can copy them, and then go down here and paste them. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Control C, Control V. And you'll notice it didn't just paste the numbers. It actually pasted the formulas, and they are all what we want them to be, which is good news. So let's go ahead and calculate our percent open stomata for each of these things. You'll remember from lab that the formula for percent open stomata is number open divided by total. So E5 divided by D5. I'm going to go over here to my percent open stomata column. I'm going to hit equals E5, and the way we signify percent is with a slash, E5 slash D5. And it tells us it's 90%, which seems correct to me. Let's take 19 and divide it by 20. Oh, 19 divided by 21, excuse me. There we go, 90%. Close enough. I mean, if you wanted to see the rest of this, you could go ahead and click on this, then it'll tell you more decimal points. But it's 90%, that's fine. Good enough for me. 2 decimals is cool. And we're going to do the same thing here. So you're going to say equals E6 slash D6. Tells you that. Or you could remember that you just single click where you just wrote that one formula, take your cursor to the bottom right hand corner and just drag it down. We're going to do the same thing down here. So you could write equals E14 slash D14 if you want to. Or you can just copy all of these. Makes you wonder why they even give you the option. But we're just going to copy this and we're going to paste it here. I pressed Control and then V. And these are the right formulas. Okay. So let's figure out our average percent open for condition 1. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to write another formula. Whenever you're writing a formula in Excel or Sheets and sometimes other relational databases, you're going to go ahead and type in equals. And what do you think the formula for average is? Well, the formula that you need, or the function that you need, is the word average. So you're going to type in equals average. And you can even do it really weird if you want. Like, it doesn't care about capitalization. Some programs do. Sheets and Excel don't. But we're going to type in equals average. And you want to get the average of G5 through G10, right? 88%. You can type in equals average. And then remember, Shift 9 to open the parentheses. And you can click and drag if you would like. It's still going to give you 88%. Let's figure out the same thing for condition 2. We're going to hit equals the average, G14 through G19. Or you could, and you can click and drag all the way down if you want. It doesn't really matter. You could also, if you have your sheet set up correctly, you could copy this and paste it, and that'll give you the stuff that you want. So you just want to take the average. Or if you prefer, you could say 90 plus 96 plus 79 plus 88 plus 89 plus 87 divided by 6. But I probably wouldn't do it that way personally. There we go. That's our stuff. We're going to go ahead and work over here on a summary table. We're going to make some summary statistics. So our average percent open stomata for condition 1 is 0.88 or 88%. Or you can hit equals and then click this and just get the data that way. That's what I would recommend, because you'll notice if you say like, oh, hey, I accidentally typed in my data wrong. This is actually supposed to be a 26. Notice that the data updated for us automatically. If we change it back to 2, it changes to 88. But let's say, oh, this is actually 0. Well, now our average percent open is indeed changing. Helps if you're error prone. Let's go ahead and grab condition 2. So our average percent open is equals H13, because that's where that data point lives. And don't worry about standard deviation. We don't have to do any hard math. I'm going to show you how to make Sheets do that for us in just a moment. But now I'm going to go ahead and click all of these. You need all of these cells here. And we're going to go over to Insert, and we're going to go down to Chart. Insert Chart. If you ever forget how to do this, you can also type in, click Help and type in Chart, and it'll take you to the Insert Chart button as well. But I'm going to select all of these data, and I'm going to go up to Insert, and I'm going to go down to Chart. There we have it. This is way, way, way too big. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Condition 1, Condition 2, average percent open stomata. I don't want it to say versus, so you can just double click that. We want it to say average percent open stomata is fine. And we're going to want to insert standard deviation error bars. So actually, in the interest of making sure we all understand what we're doing, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to delete the chart. We'll recreate this in just a second. But we're going to go over to our standard deviation and our summary statistics, and we're going to make Excel take the standard deviation for us. The way you do that is you type in equals STDEV. I believe this is the population standard deviation, if you were curious. And we're going to want to get G5, equals STDEV, open parentheses, G5 through G10. Close parentheses or just press enter. Our standard deviation is reasonably small, which is what we want. I'm going to talk about standard deviation in a moment, but you want your standard deviations to be pretty small when you're doing things like this. If you have big standard deviations, it means your numbers are very different, and that's not what we want. So let's get our standard deviation for condition 2. We're going to get equals STDEV, and we're going to go, this is G14 through G19. So you can type that in, you can click it and drag and grab them all if you want, but there's our standard deviation for our condition 2. Let's talk about standard deviation for a second here. Yeah. Stop it. So we have our data set 1, and you can see data set 1 is all of these numbers here in data set 1 are all quite close to each other. They're 1s and they're 2s, but they're all very, very similar. And so those numbers are not spread out, and our standard deviation is going to be quite small. So standard D, we're going to get that in a second. We're going to get our averages as well. Data set 2, on the other hand, you can see all these numbers are wildly different. They're all very, very different from one another. We go all the way from 2 up to like 500,000 or whatever this is. And you can see the numbers are very, very spread out from one another. So let's go ahead and get the average of B5, B6 through B, I think it's 38. Doesn't really matter, but B32, okay. So the average is 1 point, it's, 1 something, and we're going to get the average of C6 through C32. Huge number, right? Big, big numbers. But let's figure out what our standard deviation is. Again, data set 1, all small. We're expecting standard deviation to be small. Equals STDEV. That's how you get it. That's the standard deviation equation. Equals STDEV B6 through B32. 0.36. It's less than 1. Our standard deviation is small. That's what we were expecting. Let's figure out our standard deviation for this other wild data set. Equals STDEV C6 through C32. And it's huge. Our standard deviations, some in the tens of thousands, which is what we expected. But I digress. We want our standard deviation to be small. Standard deviation gives you a sense of how spread out your values are. So again, we're going to select these cells here. I'm going to go up to Insert Chart. And then where it says Setup here, if you get lost, you just need to click Setup. And then we're going to scroll down, and we want all of these buttons selected. Switch rows and columns. Use column J as headers. Use row 4 as labels. And you'll know you did it right because you have different colors for condition 1 and condition 2. That's exactly what we want. Now that we have this, we're going to go over to Customize here. And again, if you ever lose this, you just double click on the chart that you inserted. We're going to go over to Customize now, and we're going to go down to Series. First of all, let me make this thing smaller. And we're going to go to Error Bars. Now it's guessing 10%. I don't know why it's guessing 10%, but it is. We also, at the top here, we want to just apply to condition 1. So we have condition 1 selected. We're going to scroll down. And we're going to go to, instead of percent, we're going to go to a constant, and the constant percent that we want is 0.054832. At this point, it doesn't really, you don't need this many decimals, but we want our standard deviation to be our error bar for condition 1. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to scroll up to our series and we're going to select condition 2. And we're going to go down, error bars, we don't want a percent, we want this constant value here. Let's copy this value, double click to get this menu back, customize, we go to series, we go to error bars, and we want our constant value to be this. Okay, so there you have it. We have our condition 1 and our condition 2 percent open stomata. I also don't want it to say average percent open stomata everywhere. I don't want it to say versus here. I just want it to say average percent open stomata. We really don't want this one either, so we're going to go over to our horizontal axis, and I guess we're just going to be cheesy about it, and we're going to go text color white. That is super cheese, but whatever. Sometimes done is good enough, okay? We've got our average percent open stomata. We got our condition 1, our condition 2. I prefer it without the title like that, actually. Okay, so we have this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a docs.new. That's how you type in docs.new into your URL here. It'll open up a page for you. And I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to copy this. And we're going to paste it into our Word doc. You want to paste it unlinked. And then once you have this, I'd like an explanation of what's actually happening. So the graph above shows the differences in average percent open stomata for 2 conditions, or whatever verbiage you want to use. You should also explain why there are so many more open stomata in condition 1 versus condition 2. And the reason for that is that condition 1, I had pruned off of my tree that morning. So that morning I went out with some scissors, I cut those branches for us to look at, and so they were pretty fresh. Condition 2, I had harvested a couple of days before, and so they had been sitting there, and even though there was water, they weren't attached to the tree anymore. They were drying out, and so because those leaves were trying to conserve water, their stomata were closing up. So just give me a brief explanation of that down here as well. I would also like you to do the same exact procedure for your data. So you're going to need to type your data in here, and you can just rewatch the video if you need to remember how to do it, but you'll type in whatever values you got, and then you're going to go ahead and paste in your chart. Paste in your chart, and I don't need 2 explanations, I just need 1 explanation is fine, but I would like to see both graphs, and you need to tell me which one is my data and which one is your data. Okay, I think that's about it. All right, cool. Thank you guys.